Welcome to Bet On It, the college edition. I promised Marco I would not drink too much wine yesterday, and I lied to him. I am Kelly Stewart, your host for this afternoon at Kelly in Vegas, joined by Marco D'Angelo at Marco in Vegas and Greek_gambler. That's right, VR Ace, the man of 87 nicknames. You guys ready to start talking about these primetime games? We have some really good games this week.
Yeah, we do.
I'm excited. Well, I wish I got to sit on my couch and watch football all day, but I'm excited to get to watch these games nonetheless. Let's start with Alabama at Auburn. Alabama, 3.5-point favorite. Marco, I'll start with you. This looks like it's begging for everyone to bet the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, well, Alabama, game one without Tua was no problem. Mac Jones did everything asked of him, but they were playing Western Carolina. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous with the SEC having the cupcake schedule at the end of the season.
And only having to play 8 SEC games, yeah.
But it is what it is. We look at this one. He's going to be facing, obviously, a real defense this week in Auburn. And Auburn's played well this year. No one scored more than 24 points on Auburn this season as their defense has kept them in all of their games. Auburn's 3 losses this season have been by 11, 7, and 3. So, I mean, they've really not been blown out in any game. They do have a freshman quarterback, but which do you want now? You want the freshman quarterback at the end of the season that's already faced teams like LSU, Georgia, and Oregon at the beginning of the season, or do you want Mac Jones, who has got, a big upside, would probably be starting on just about every other college football team in the country, but he's never been on a stage of this size. We know the rivalry between Alabama and Auburn. Anybody from that state, it's like you're one or the other. Families get divided between Alabama and Auburn. I got to go with the home dog here. Use your quote, primetime home dog. We've got to look at Auburn plus the points. I think
this is college, not NFL, because those primetime home dogs in NFL have not been barking this year.
I'm taking 23-20. I'm calling for the upset.
All right, VR, this Auburn team, I've only bet them a couple of times this year, and most notably was against Georgia. So initially I'm a little gun-shy here. But this Georgia defense is much better than the Alabama defense is this year. I don't know why. Nick Saban historically does have better defenses. As we saw in the LSU game, they just got worked. Marco mentioned Bo Nix. Your thoughts on this game?
I got to agree with you. I mean, listen, Auburn's got a chance to play spoiler and knock Alabama out of that Final Four and playoff contention. And more importantly, the last time Alabama went into Auburn, if you remember, they were about 4.5-point favorites and lost that game outright. Listen, now Alabama's Alabama, but the odds makers have done a really good job of not allowing bettors to make a lot of money back in Alabama. I mean, even when they have those 10-1 seasons, you're lucky for them to be 1-2 games over 500. You throw in the VIG, and they're barely profitable. So they've done a real good job of that. And I think this is another case where the money's going to come in on Alabama, not surprising, even though without Tua there, I think they'll still attract money. And this line may climb, and if it does, I believe the value's on Auburn as well. Just not too sure if they could win this game. Looks like the kind that'll come down to a field goal either way, so if you could get over 3 on the Auburn side, I think that's the way to go.
I agree with you. I think it's going to stay over 3 because they do know they're going to get the Alabama money, so they have to shade the line to 3.5 to just give themselves a little bit of protection here. Okay, Bedlam, Oklahoma, minus 13.5 at Oklahoma State. VR, I'm going to kick it back to you. I think we're a little divided on this one.
Yeah, we laugh about Oklahoma because the opposite of Michigan. Michigan's that hill you probably don't want to die on, but Oklahoma appears to be that hill you may want to take a shot. But they're not going to cover spreads. That's the problem. But they continue to win games, and that's been the most difficult thing with dealing with this Oklahoma team. How do you adjust their power ratings? I mean, do you continue to drop them because they're not covering against the Vegas number? Or do you leave them where they are because they're still winning the games? And that's the difficulty. I mean, because when you look at the talent on that team, how much can you continue to drop them? I mean, they are a top 5-6 team in college football. It's hard to argue that. And for me, I think it's another spot where bettors have given up on Oklahoma, and I don't blame them for that. I mean, they've burned through money, especially of late. But I believe the market just isn't correct because of that. I think you're getting a really good team at a discounted price. So I have to look to Oklahoma. Again, I haven't made a single college football bet so far this week. But if that game was tonight and I had to bet it, I would bet the better team, Oklahoma.
All right, that is a good side note. It is Tuesday. Normally we film the show on Wednesday, so a little less information, especially from guys like VR. His sheet is still lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah,
over there.
it is. We fired, but the only thing is, see, a lot of it is setting stuff up. A lot of it is
like head fakes.
And waiting to see how the market, what's going to happen and what's legit, and how the market, once the betting limits increase. Like, so much goes on between Wednesday and Friday for college football. It's ridiculous.
You can blame Thanksgiving for that one, guys. All right, Bedlam has always been a fun rivalry as a Big 12 girl. Oklahoma almost always wins this game, Marco. Last year, Oklahoma State put on a clinic. This game was almost 100 points. It was absolutely insane. I like Oklahoma State here, at least catching almost 2 touchdowns. I don't think we will see a 14, but your thoughts on this rivalry game?
Yeah, I leaned to Oklahoma State in this one, but I actually told the graphics girl the wrong play for me. I'm actually on the over in this game is my official play in this one. And it is one of those. And if you look at Oklahoma, this is my concern with Oklahoma. You look the last 4 weeks, the defense is deteriorating for Oklahoma.
Problem.
They are starting to look like the Oklahoma defense that we saw last year. Yes, they're still winning the games, but they're giving up too many points.
That's why they're not covering, yeah.
They're not covering the games, and you look at what's happened. Their last 3 wins have been by a combined 8 points over Iowa State, Baylor, and TCU. You know, Iowa State, good team, plays a little defense. Baylor, good team, plays defense. TCU, supposed to have a good defense, but offensively they were challenged this year with all the injuries they had at quarterback and that. And TCU still traded points with them last week. I got to look at this one and go to the over. Oklahoma State's defense ranked in the they're way down there. Where are they at? 68th, allowing 5.7 yards per play. I think both teams are going to go up and down the field. And then Mike Gundy, for head coach for Oklahoma State, they're already bowl eligible. So they don't have any pressure on them. They're going to try to play spoiler. They're going to take chances.
That's kind of what I'm looking at here is, because it's a rivalry game, do you think teams look ahead? Because we know Oklahoma's going to the Big 12 championship game. They're going to play Baylor again.
Oh, for them, it's most definitely a look. You know, it is the rivalry.
Because this Oklahoma State team's just not that good this year. And last week I got burned by it, but playing West Virginia because Sanders was out was something for me to consider here. The backup Brown did pretty well.
He did. Now, West Virginia's not that good.
Correct.
And I know John Murray's not going to like that, his team there. But this is a spot where Oklahoma State will score points and they will give up points. It's one of those ones going to be fun one. I just think it's a typical Big 12 game.
Shootout.
Just light it up. And Oklahoma's got to try to leave a little bit in the tank for next week because that's the game that's all the marbles for them.
VR, really quick, did you guys play Oklahoma, or is that just a personal opinion?
No, Oklahoma's a personal opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't bet the Oklahoma side.
Okay, cool. Not that I don't respect your personal opinion, but I always I
respect a little more when it's back to us.
We're talking about NFL.
Of course.
Prepping for the NFL show as well. I'm going, oh, good God. Yeah. Okay, great stuff, guys. It is time for us to step out for a quick break, but when we return, it is the big game breakdown. That's right, the Ohio State versus Michigan game.
Get $25 in wager bucks added to your account after your first purchase at wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. This is just our way of saying thank you for joining the Wager Talk and Sports Memo family. Every Monday at wagertalk.com, all plays are just $9. This even includes top-rated 5% plays, which normally sell for $40. There's no better day to get winning picks than $9 Mondays at wagertalk.com and our sister site, sportsmemo.com.
Welcome back to Bet On It. If you wondered why we didn't talk about this game in the primetime segments, because this game is the biggest game of the weekend. So, of course, this segment is called the Big Game Breakdown. That's right, Ohio State at Michigan State. Ohio State 8.5, 9 around town. Marco, I will start with you. I feel like Michigan is going to be a trendy dog this week.
Oh, absolutely, especially after last week when you look and saw that Penn State played what looks like at the final score was a close game with Ohio
Right,
State. But
which it
really,
wasn't.
no, it wasn't. And this game got close on a series of about 3 minutes. Penn State got a touchdown and then immediately got a turnover and punched it in, and all of a sudden went from 21-0 to 21-14, and they made a game of it. But Ohio State was never really, in distress in that game. They handled it. Chase Young back last week. You see him make impact right away with the defense. I like Ohio State. This team they're playing like a team on a mission. And it's one of those things is, Urban Meyer left. We were going to expect the drop off. Your quarterback went to the NFL and Haskins and all of that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Sorry, bad joke. Redskins fans.
Come on, he won the game and got to get a selfie at the sideline before the game was over. Did you see that?
That was funny.
Yeah, that was funny. They needed somebody to take the last snap, and he's in the stands taking a selfie.
I think he was probably overzealous about, getting a W.
Getting a W, and ugly as it was, and my God, I mean, if you're the team that lost them, that was Johnny's Detroit Lions. Sorry, Johnny. And Johnny will be in town this week. So
yes, don't forget, guys, we are going to be down at the Westgate at the clubhouse. It's going to be awesome. Marco said he's buying bottles of Grey Goose for everybody there.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. But you did buy a bunch of swag.
We got some swag, so come down, check it out at the Westgate. Look forward. What time are we starting that?
I'll be there about 10 a.m., right, for morning kickoff, and then
I'll be there by 10:30.
By about 4 o'clock, I got to cut myself off because I have to do the podcast.
Got to cut yourself. You don't have that gear.
John Murray said, you are not allowed to be drunk on our podcast on Sunday. And I said, well, you do know. Yeah, well.
Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
All right, back to this one. Ohio State's got the #1 defense in yards per play. At 3.5 yards per play is all they are allowing. #1 defense in points per game at 10.5. Ohio State's won 14 of the last 15 in this one straight up. I know this is, if there was ever going to be a year coming in, we talked at the beginning of the season, we said this was going to be the year for Michigan to do it. I'm sorry, it's not happening. I got Ohio State. I got them winning by 2 touchdowns. This will be unpopular side because, as you said, Kelly, I think Michigan's going to be that trendy dog. Everybody's going to be on
It just looks like it. I mean, I always try to figure out early in the week, like, who is going to be those trendy dogs, because I do like to stay away from them because I've fallen trap of them enough of myself. And the first thing I looked at was Michigan.
Yeah.
Of course. Who doesn't want to back Michigan here in the biggest game of the year? I mean, this is their Super Bowl, but I don't know if I'm buying the hype. Sorry, VR. I'm trying to look for, I think the game of the year line was 3.
On this game, it just kept going up.
And it just kept going up and up, obviously, because Michigan really faltered, almost losing to Army. Just those 3 or 4 games.
At one point, didn't it get to 13 at
It
one
did,
point?
13 and a half, I think, even. And so when it did, boom, then they beat the crap out of Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
And so they were starting to able to come back then, now beat up on Michigan State, etc. I don't know what to make of this Michigan team. Besides the trendy dog thing aside, that's mainly half of me joking towards Twitter. But
there was a trendy dog last night in football as well in the NFL.
Yeah. And we saw what happened to that bloodbath.
Every sharp that I know, including us, was on the Rams, and that didn't work out.
I'm just looking at 9. I don't think that's enough points for me to back Michigan. Your thoughts?
I'm not surprised the line's climbing up. 2 sets of power ratings that I trust. One makes the game 9.5. The other one made the game 10.5.
Okay.
So I wasn't surprised at that 8.5 opener to see the market going towards the direction of what these guys have for the betting line for this game. And that's a true line, not what the books have to do, and that's manage their risk. 2 completely different things, and you got to be cautious of that because the job of the sports book's not to predict outcomes. Their job's to manage risk.
Can you speak on that a little bit more? Because I think that is an
people
important
make the
learning
mistake of thinking that the point spread is a reflection of what the bookmakers think Team A is this many points better than Team B. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, if they did that for every game, they're rooting for a push that the game lands on what they predict. So that's not what they're doing. Their job is to minimize risk and make a profit from volume. And that volume is because they have a 4.5% hold. So out of every $100 that you bet, they theoretically know they're going to win $4.50 from you. That's how they comp you. That's how they grade you.
Which is why, if you
that's
notice, a lot of these books aren't giving drink tickets anymore because that's not they know that you go to the bar and pay $10 for a drink as opposed to the $4.50 for your $100 bet.
Exactly. Well, well, with that theoretical hold, here's what you got to remember. In blackjack, which we know is the house always wins, right? Unless you're an advantage player, a 6-deck, even 6-deck, the hold on a sports bet is 10 times higher than it is on a blackjack table. So for every $100 you bet in blackjack, they expect to take 50 cents of it. You know what I mean? Less than 0.5% compared to sports, which is $4.50. So it's, like I said, 10 times the hold from sports. And that's where people make the mistake of thinking they could beat it. That hold is so hard to beat, that 4.5%. And the volume is all they're looking for. So a book has to manage that risk. And they know if the perception is Team A is that much better than Team B, they're going to have to shade the line for that bias. That's not their prediction of the outcome. That's them managing their risk. Again, real quickly for this game, because we don't have much time, I think the value actually is going to be on the Michigan side, who just doesn't want to get blown out in this spot. Listen, they already lost to Wisconsin. They already lost to Penn State. We know who owns this series. It's Ohio State. This ain't a rivalry. They won 14 of their last 15. It's just, can they keep it close?
True. Great stuff, guys. I can't wait to watch this game. We're going to bring in our resident stat man, Mr. Ralph Michaels. Welcome to Rapid Fire TNA, because I didn't leave Ralph enough time for the segment, so make sure you guys are following him on Twitter at CalSportsLV so you can get all of the rest of these trends. Ralph, give me a couple of your best ones you got there.
Kelly, you know, the thing that reading the feedback people give is they much prefer when we help them handicap talking about situations. It may only be a 60% angle instead of an 80, but it's something they can learn to look for and use. And this one's simple. You can only use it this week, you know, or the last couple weeks of the season. And in a previous season, if you go back and archive, college football teams with 5 wins trying to get to 6 wins is not always a positive, because teams have pressure to get there. But in this situation, if you are exactly 5-6, you're playing your last game, and you're a favorite. So you're a favorite at 5-6 means you're playing an inferior foe. Those favorites at exactly 5-6, this goes back all the way to 1999, have hit 60.6%. They've gone 40-26. Those teams, TCU, Mississippi State, and Michigan State.
God, Sparta's going to be tough to back.
Well, look at the way they've played, though. Their defense covered against Rutgers by not allowing points. Their defense covered the week before. So if the teams are 5-6 and they're a favorite and they're off a win, so these teams are 4-6, having to win 2 games to get to 500 and get to a bowl. They've gone 13-6 since 2010. Those are Mississippi State and Michigan State. So if we're looking at 5-6 teams, what's the obvious thing we have to look at? 6-5 teams. Well, if you're a 6-5 team, what do you have to play for? You're not going to a good bowl. You're not winning your conference. You don't have a conference championship on deck. You've probably achieved your goal of getting to a bowl. So 6-5 teams have very little motivation. And when you're a home favorite of 1 to 8.5, you've only covered 29.6% of the time. Those teams defade Eastern Michigan, Washington, Georgia Southern, and Kentucky.
Wow.
Now to add on top of that, those teams have also only gone 4-17 over/under, 81% to the under. So 5-6 as a favorite, a lot of motivation. 6-5 as a small favorite, completely different dynamic.
All right, great stuff, Ralph. Again, if you guys aren't following Ralph, at CalSportsLV on Twitter, we are going to take a quick break, but when we return, it is time to walk the dogs. One of my favorite segments, Barking Dogs, is up next. We're going to see who VR and Marco think is worth just a little money line sprinkle here.
Looking for NBA betting information? Then check out Wager Talk's new NBA tip-off show hosted weekdays by Joe Ranieri. Joe will go over any big movements from the overnight lines or morning openers. Joe will be joined daily by different Wager Talk and Sports Memo cappers who will break down the daily card, pointing out trends, angles, and winning situations for that day's action. They'll also give out live underdog plays, the play of the night, along with their best bets and even some prop bets. Tune in Monday through Friday for the NBA tip-off show exclusively on Wager Talk TV. Want up-to-the-minute scores and odds direct from Las Vegas? Then check out our Wager Talk odds page. You'll get all the latest lines along with moves as they happen from all the biggest books in Las Vegas, including Westgate Superbook, Circa, Golden Nugget, Wynn, Stations, CG, and South Point, just to name a few. Best of all, it's absolutely free.
Welcome back to one of my favorite portions of the show. It's time for Barking Dogs. This has been a fun segment. I enjoy being able to find those underdogs that have a good chance to win outright. Marco, I'm going to let you have the honors and go first. Tell me who your barking dog is.
I got a big dog. We got
A big dog?
Big dog, and he's barking loud.
Like a French bulldog?
No. What are we?
At the Mastiff side.
Yeah, the Mastiff.
Oh, there you go. We're taking the Arizona Wildcats plus 13.5. And this is a rivalry game. This is the perfect setup for this rivalry game. First off, we all know what happened last week.
Yes, we do. That was
Arizona State goes in and beats at home, big game, knocks down Oregon, ends their national championship hopes with the 31-28 upset, is a 13-point dog. Now, you hear me use the phrase fat and sassy.
all the time.
How can Arizona State not be fat and sassy this week after that big win? Then you've got Arizona coming in here. And the thing about rivalry games, and just to talk about a little handicapping lesson for you this week, take your stats, okay? When you get to the last week of the season and you have all these rivalry games, just pitch your stats out the window because they don't hold true. It's a different atmosphere,
Very true.
okay? And the case in point here is if you look at the stats of this game, Arizona State's the better team. That's why they're a 13.5-point favorite. Arizona's at 4-7. They're going nowhere. This is their bowl game. This is their hated rival. They're not that far apart, drive time, head into Tempe, Arizona there. This is a spot for Arizona to come in. They got nothing to lose.
I like it.
I'm taking them here, and the public's going to do, I always call it the ABC comparison.
Well, yeah, because Arizona hasn't even covered a game in their last 6 tries either.
There's no love for them, but you're going to look and say, their last 2 games, they scored 6 and 7 points. Well, they played Oregon and Utah, okay? You've heard me all year ride this Utah team about this defense. The absolute best defense in the Pac-12 and one of the best defenses in the country. Oregon shut them down. But look at the comparison. Everybody's going to say, well, they got killed by Oregon, and now they're playing a team that just beat Oregon. So if Arizona State can beat Oregon and Oregon smoked Arizona, this is just too easy.
Seems logical.
Yeah, that does not work in sports betting. Let me tell you, doing the ABC comparison, I'm taking Arizona here, plus the points. Throw out the stats. This is going to be a barn burner. I've got Arizona State escaping 35-31, but I'm taking that mountain of points with Arizona.
Any chance we need to be?
Just a small one here, just a small one,
Okay.
because at plus 13.5, you're getting a monster number, Kelly.
Yeah. I look at Kevin Sumlin and I'm like, I think he can cover this game, but I get really frustrated with him looking for the outright underdog win. All right, VR, what kind of barking dog do you have for us this week?
All right, we're going to go to a double-digit dog, and I'm going to look at Middle Tennessee State catching a whole lot of points against Western Kentucky. And I get it. Western Kentucky's having a great year. I think they're 7-4 straight up, covered 8 of 11 games, outperforming the betting market. But everything's changing for this matchup, and here's what I mean by that. If you look at Western Kentucky over the last 6 or 7 weeks, they've only been a favorite one time. So what they've done impressively has been as an underdog. This week, that role changes, and they're automatically now thrusted into the favorites role, and the double-digit favorite at that. And they're just laying way too many points against a Middle Tennessee State team that just plays them tough. I mean, they beat them last year by almost 20 points. The year prior in Western Kentucky, it was a field goal game. And I think you're going to see a Middle Tennessee State team that's going to be able to run the football successfully, keep the game close from start to finish, and have a chance to win it. So at getting double digits, I like Middle Tennessee.
All right, looking for some angles here, VR. I'm going to stick with you. Your steam plays have been absolute money, kind of like the freight train that goes across before we start it. Tell me who your steam game is for this week.
Rarely do I look to lay a lot of points in college football unless you're looking to get out ahead of the market on those marquee teams that you know the line's going to move 2, 3, 4, 5 points a lot of times. In this spot, we're going to look at Oregon. Pretty much the last game on the board, giving almost 3 touchdowns to Oregon State. Now, Oregon's coming off that loss last week to Arizona State where they were 2 touchdown favorites and just lost that game by a field goal. So the thought is they may be down for this week. But I think all their frustration is going to be taken out on who better than Oregon State, a team that they've beaten by a combined 99 points the last 2 times they faced them. And I just don't think Oregon State has anything to be able to stay within 3 touchdowns of Oregon at home. It's a matchup where you'll see Oregon systematically start to break them down, and it'll turn into a 4 or 5 touchdown win for them. This is the kind of team that Oregon blows out. We saw them do it in that midseason when they went on that run where they only allowed about 5 points per game over a 6-week span. Why? Because they played teams like Oregon State, and when they meet up with those teams, they like to run up the score. That's exactly what they're going to do here on Saturday. Wise Guys laid 20. 2 of the groups I moved for laid 18, 18.5, 19.
Wow.
So I like the Oregon side. I agree with it.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and cross Oregon State off my list. It's a long list. It's Tuesday. Give me a little bit of a...
They were just in a big shootout last week, and it ended up losing by a point. Like,
yes.
If they won that game, then you have some momentum. But to be in that and to lose by a point, I mean, they're got to be a little down, too.
Absolutely. All right, Marco, your sandwiches have just been killing it this year.
Tasty.
I think we're hitting right around 70% in the deli.
The NFL sandwich games have been much better, but we've been cashing some of them, and we've been riding we've been in the Big 12, and I'm going to stay in the Big 12 again.
You're going to stay in the Big 12?
But it's not Texas Tech this week. Hey,
why? I like Texas Tech this week.
We're 3 for 3 going with and against Texas Tech the last 3 weeks. So, you know, we've been zoned in. I do lean to Texas Tech in that game. We talked about that in the green room, Kelly, but I'm going to a different Big 12 game. And first off, I'll eat crow. You were right last week, okay? But I got you on an NFL game, so we were 1-1.
Fair.
But you got me on the Baylor-Texas game last week, and I got you guys on the Buffalo-Denver game last week. So
I'm glad I didn't really play that one in real life because that would have sucked. They looked terrible. So congrats to you, Marco.
I bet.
Yeah.
God.
This one, though, it's a sandwich game. How can you have a sandwich game when it's the last week of the season? Don't you have to have bread on the top and bottom?
I mean, in theory, yes.
Okay.
That's what sandwiches are. Unless you get, like me, you get the lettuce wraps instead of the bread.
What? You're just talking nonsense, girl. Come on.
Marco's
okay?
like, they can do that?
All right, enough of that. I mean, don't be...
Don't be stupid.
Yeah, okay.
Carbs are our friend.
Well, you could have an open-faced sandwich, but we still have the full sandwich. We got top and bottom. Why? Because there's some teams that are going to be playing in a national or conference championship game next week. So they do have another piece of bread next week, and that is the Baylor Bears here. I got to give my tip of the hat to Matt Rule for getting his team up last week. After the way they lost to Oklahoma, I think this guy's coach of the year, in my opinion.
He's definitely Big 12 coach of the year,
Okay,
and Chris Kleiman is doing a great job in Manhattan, and it's not even close. Matt Rule is definitely...
It's it, but, you know, Ryan Day's going to get it for Ohio State just because of the Buckeyes. But he has done a marvelous...
Heaven forbid you just inherit a great program instead of pulling one out of the gutter.
But I look at this one, and here's the spot. You had Baylor last week in that bad spot, and they still won against... As you pointed out, you always get up for Texas. Doesn't matter what Texas is on the season, you always get up for them.
We just all equally hate Texas.
Okay,
so that's how
but now you're coming off
Hook 'em horns.
You're coming off of Texas. What do you got this week? You've got Kansas. Kansas. Is there anything good in Kansas?
Dorothy.
I mean,
right? Didn't she live there? The
Other
Wizard
than
of
once
Oz.
you left, okay? Is there anything good in
it
Kansas?
was a great place to grow up.
I can imagine,
All right.
right?
But you're not getting excited for Kansas like you got excited for Texas last week.
No one gets excited to play KU except for K-State
see.
this year because
Okay.
of the trash talk with Les Miles.
Okay. But what do they have next week? The biggest revenge game that the program's had in recent years. They gave away that game to Oklahoma. They got the rematch coming up next week,
luck with
Oklahoma
that.
in the Big 12 championship game. This is a perfect sandwich spot. And let's talk about Les Miles. He's done a good job bringing Kansas. I mean, they're not going to a bowl game, but he's made them semi-respectable in his first year.
Yeah, I agree.
So the program's definitely heading in the right spot. You got a Baylor team that, let's call it the delayed letdown. They came back, bounced back against Texas, and you've got a monster look-ahead spot to next week. I got to take Kansas. Final game of the season, senior day. How do you not?
I'm looking and I'm trying to
they're
make
home.
a case for
It
taking
makes
Kansas,
sense.
but you make a lot of sense, Marco. I think they're going to see a ton of Baylor money come in on this because it's Baylor, and Baylor's done well.
It's tough
It's
to
tough
back
to
the
back
dog
KU.
here.
It's tough to
It
back
is,
them.
it is.
They're
But I
ugly.
could see the back door open. That's what it looks like.
Some of the best bets you make are the toughest ones.
That you're
to go to
afraid
win-
to, yeah.
to go
Those
to-
usually cash the easiest for me.
Those ones that are no-brainers, like taking the Rams last
Yeah,
night.
those are the ones. By 20 minutes in, I'm watching Netflix.
Yeah.
That was bad. I
Yeah.
mean, KU's done well in the Big 12. They've covered 4 of their 6 in the last 6 Big 12 games. I mean, obviously, like as I mentioned, the K-State game was kind of a different situation, but KU has tried to play really tough, and they've given their best effort. I think you're right, Marco. I think this is an interesting look-ahead sandwich scenario.
It's got everything there. And if you're Baylor, what do you want to do? All you want to do is get
through
in,
it, get through it.
Get
Yeah,
in and
yeah,
get
yeah.
out and get to
Get
next
the win
week.
and, yeah,
Run the
stay
football,
healthy.
shorten the game, and let's get to next week and bring those Sooners
No
back in.
injuries. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at KU. They hung tight with Iowa State last week, and Iowa State has.
And they're
everybody
home.
knows-
Les will make them fight for 60 minutes.
That's a good point. Okay, guys. The dogs have been walked. The steam and sandwich games have been given out. We've talked about a little bit of money line sprinkles.
Best bets.
So you know. He's over there like whispering like a ghost. Best bets. That's exactly what time it is. Coming up after this last break, VR and I are head-to-head. Marco and I are not head-to-head this week. That's exciting. I'm excited to see who you guys have.
I couldn't name a single player on his best bets team.
Oh my gosh. We'll see you guys up next.
It's been a remarkable year at wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com, and we have you, our loyal followers, to thank for our growth and success. From our WagerTalk and Sports Memo families, we want to say thanks and wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. In the spirit of giving thanks, we're going to have special pricing all during the Thanksgiving holiday. Every play at both wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com will be priced at just $9 instead of the normal $25 or $40 prices. This special will run from Thanksgiving Day through Monday, December 2nd. Again, happy Thanksgiving from everyone here at wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com.
Welcome back to Bet On It. I'm happy because my Starbucks just got delivered. Maybe they'll sponsor our show since it's the only one I'm going to get through 2 of these today. Sorry, it was my birthday. I have all the excuses in the world for.
And apparently, you're amazing.
I am amazing. Marco thinks he's funny. All right, guys, we're going to do your favorite part of the show, and that is Best Bets. And I wanted to go first, and I wanted to take Texas Tech. And then VR said that he was going to be on the opposite side. So I'm going to let VR start while I figure out between these other 3 which one is going to be my actual best bet.
Yeah,
I don't mind going head-to-head with Marco, but I don't like going head-to-head with VR.
Oh, a little jab back.
No, listen, it looks scary to take the Texas side, especially as my best bet. But real quickly, I just want to say last week's best bet, I lost that one. But I want to tell you that was one of the I had a great week in college football. I had a 10-5 week, which was great. And I apologize, I gave a loser here, but I ended up using it as a premium like I shared on the show last week. But I thought it was a great bet, and still today I thought it was one of my best bets on this show. And here's why, because I gave it out to use on here on Wednesday at +7, and it stayed +7 on Thursday. on Friday. By Saturday, when that game went, Friday the game went off, it was at 4.5 at Pinnacle.
And that was rough because I was on it with you. It was on the card for John Murray and I as well. So
Colorado
I was
State.
extra happy.
That
because
is a win. The outcome to me is irrelevant. The fact it lost, of course, I want to win my bet, but the fact it lost to me doesn't matter. That is how you win long term. Your ability to do that makes you a mathematical certainty to turn a profit long term. And if you do that constantly, that's when books back you off. And you asked the question to John Murray, like, how do you tell someone you label them sharp? And he said, within a couple of bets, I can tell. And it's not whether those bets win. It's did they beat the betting market? Did they beat the closing line every time? Because John Murray knows this guy could have went 0-5 today. It's irrelevant. But if he can continue to do this, he's going to beat us. He's a lock to beat us. That's how they label you. And to me, that's why I think if you could place good bets, you do that over and over and over again, just focus on that. The results take care of themselves. And for the result, I am taking this Texas team and laying the points because Texas Tech looks automatic. It looks like
it does. It does.
It looks laying
Texas,
points.
Texas
laying
is
points with
up.
Texas and with Herman, you're going to see all the trends about how bad he is as a favorite. Just it's a simple case of Texas is a much better team. And Texas Tech has just not played well on the road at all. I don't see how they're going to keep this game close. I really don't. I think Texas is just the only thing you're banking on is that trend of Texas not doing good as a favorite, of Texas Tech keeping games close. Eventually, when you lose all those games by 2, 3, 4 points, and you're not winning them, you can only come close so many times. This is the kind of game I think they end up getting blown out in. I think Texas really does blow them out.
I wish I could use that same example for my best bet this weekend. I gave out Liberty on the show, and it did close at 16.5, and they looked really good at halftime. And that was about all she wrote, because Virginia must have gotten a nice
that even
lecture.
went to 16 during the week. That was sharp play. That's all you
I
can
love
hope
that
for.
play. It was my favorite one. As I mentioned, I did lean towards Texas Tech, but VR and I talked about it in the green room, so I had to get that off. But we did talk about this one during the primetime spots. And I like Oklahoma State here. I know I bet against them last week. Speaking of big-time line moves, had West Virginia, knew Sanders was going to be out. A lot of people got a push. A lot of people got a loss at 6.5. I got one of each.
I can't blame you.
Because I added more to it because that's how much I loved West Virginia last week. Speaking of being up at halftime and having a chance to win outright, that was rough. Now, the Cowboys have only been an underdog twice this season. And both times they played Texas tough, and then they won outright for me as a double-digit underdog at Iowa State. I'm going to rock with them again here. Marco mentioned that Baylor shouldn't care about KU. I'm not sure how much Oklahoma cares about Oklahoma State. I mean, they have absolutely dominated the series. I'm looking at it going, Oklahoma's going to probably win this game, but Oklahoma State is going to give them a hell of a fight, just like they did last year. And I'm banking on it. I don't think it gets to 14. If anything, it's going to drop lower. So at 13.5, I'm locked and loaded. I already texted my buddies, said you guys got to get Oklahoma State. All right, Marco, last but certainly not least.
Throw one last thing in there for your Oklahoma State rivalry game. You have an opportunity to knock your hated rival out of the national championship.
Very good point.
Playoff picture. That's huge motivation for Oklahoma State.
I do love the game being in Stillwater. I do know that Gundy does a good job rallying his troops, and I think this line's just a little disrespectful.
For me, I'm going to go uncharacteristic. I'm not going with a Power 5 conference game here. We are going Florida International at Marshall.
Oh, I bet against that team last week. Thank you, VR.
This is a spot where Marshall last week laid an egg. Okay, they went to Charlotte, bad game. But let's look at what happened. They played the week before a rare Friday night TV game with the cameras there on campus. That was a big game. They win in a blowout. But, that was the game where the suspensions came late, Some people got word early, and you saw that line starting to drop before the announcement ever came out. Little integrity issues there. But,
I don't see a problem with it. What do you mean, Marco?
Insider trading. But no, those are the kind of things when you get information, you're beating the market to the information. But here, this is pure and simple. Florida International. How does Butch Davis get this team pumped up this week?
The crazy thing is when you said in the green room, because I can only follow so many things at once. And you said that Miami lost that game, and I said, what?
Yeah. Florida International, as a 21-point underdog, beat Miami of Florida. Now, winning as a 21-point underdog to start with, period, is monumental. Now, you're Florida International. Okay, Florida International. I'm taking a guess they're in the state of Florida. And who's the big brother of the state of Florida but Miami of Florida? And so now you got the added, you knocked off Big Brother. So now
they're still partying.
Yeah, you're still partying.
Oh, yeah, because Florida International's in Miami as well.
Yeah.
So they're the team that everybody talks about.
Yeah, they're still living it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last piece of the put a little, icing on the cake, that was Florida International's 6th win. What's that mean? They're now bowl eligible. As you said,
now they got to go to Marshall. They're like,
going to Marshall. Yeah, we're going to West Virginia.
Oh my God, in that cold.
Mama? No.
They're going to be like, are you kidding me, dude?
I'm sorry, man. You want to talk about being
bet? I'm going to circle
fat and sassy, looking at a spot here. I'm all over Marshall. And if you dig deeper in the Florida International game from last week, they were outgained in that game, but 3 turnovers for Miami of Florida. Anytime you're +3 in a turnover margin, that's going to help you win a ball game. It's a false win for them. I'm doing it. Let's do it. I'm taking Marshall. They are the number 52 team in the country defensively. Florida International is 80th.
Where are they? Are they on the regular rotation this game?
It's early Saturday. And here's the best part.
Oh, I got it.
Marshall, as you talked about in the cold weather, okay, Florida International going up there. Marshall's going to run the football down their throat. And why? Because
they can.
Florida International has the 119th ranked defense at stopping the run. And when you're cold and you've got people just mowing you down, pounding at you, by the fourth quarter, no way. I'm all over Marshall. 38-23. That is my best bet for this week.
All right. So this little segment I like a little bit because I think it's important. As you guys know, I like to ask these guys throughout the show to sometimes elaborate because there are so many new people in our space. And I think it's very important that we educate people. So we're going to do our little segment called Ask the Experts. We got like 5 minutes left. So Marco, I'm going to start with the real D prove. I don't know what that means. Marco, you often talk about sandwich games, look-ahead spots, when teams come off big games or headed to another. Do the sports books not factor this into their line or even adjust for it? Or do they just not make the correct judgment?
Well, the only place where they're going to make adjustments are when it's like a TV game and somebody gets drilled. They know that the public saw that and they're going to be overreacting to it.
They are going to look at public perception.
Yes, in case in point, we keep bringing it up last night's game but it's going to be a perfect example. The Rams, their stock's going to go so far down after getting trashed last night.
Absolutely.
In Baltimore, I don't know if you can make the love for Baltimore anymore. They moved that line.
Last night was a really compelling case.
Yeah, they moved that line from pick to 3. Okay, there was a 3-point adjustment on that game last night. What's it going to be now moving forward off of that? So in that instance, yes. But here's the thing. They won't adjust for situational stuff because
they can't quantify it, too.
No, they can't because they know.
How do you say this is worth half a pointer? How do you say this is worth a pointer?
The math guys, and I buck heads with some math people out there all the time.
We love math.
Okay, well, you have to use math, but it's not the end to it.
No, it's not the end all be all. And I do think you're right. There are some certain people that tend to beat that to death. I joke about it a lot.
And then they call you an idiot because you do something different.
Listen, I say that all the time on Twitter. I'm like, I know math is hard. Because at the end of the day, this team should be a 4.5-point favorite, yet the line's 3, right? The Niners, for example. And that's what I told everybody. And everybody's like, oh, you're an idiot. Yeah. And I'm like, they should be a 4.5-point favorite over the Packers. I know the math is hard. But then there's so many situations that goes into that as well. If the line is 3, the math says it's 3, something's got to give.
So the books, long answer for that, no. The books don't adjust for that because they have to respect what the math guys are going to do.
All right, VR. Dan Leahy, 17, asks, can you talk about the correlation between taking the dog and the under and the favorite and the over?
My man, personally, I don't think there is one. I mean, listen, there's certain spots where obviously even the books believe it's correlated, and if that's the case, they're not going to let you bet it. And you see it all the time on a Thursday night standalone game in the MAC where teams are 21-point favorite and the total's 45. They're not going to let you parlay that with the favorite in the over, because it's obviously correlated. If the favorite covers, then the high probability of it going over. So if you look at it from that side, I understand where you see it makes sense. And if you want to take an underdog, you want lower scoring, so the points help you. But it just doesn't translate that way. They do such a good job in the NFL of creating lines. If you look back over the last 5,000 games, I will make a bet it's pretty close to 2,500 favorites, 2,500 underdogs,
have Ralph do that.
2,500 overs, 2,500 unders. I would venture right now a bet that there's not over 5,000, that there's not a single over, under, favorite or dog that you could have profited blindly betting.
You're right, though. The gold sheet
They're
puts-
that good at it.
But
They're
the
that,
short- the
the
short
market's
samples
that
are-
efficient.
Yeah, the short samples are, but you're right.
This
over
year,
five.
for example, NFL
Road underdogs.
period
Yeah.
are hitting like 55%, which we
Right.
know if you're blindly betting thousands of bets and you're hitting 55%, we're on an island and somebody's feeding us grapes.
For sure,
okay?
for sure.
Real quick, Marco, last question. At Check Cleared, I like that Twitter name. Marco, why is the sandwich game methodology so accurate? I would think you have to focus on the team in front of you no matter what. I mean, is a simple answer that these kids are 20 years old and they can't focus on anything?
Absolutely. You have a big game, you just upset somebody, and then you're playing a lesser opponent the next week. How do you have that same intensity level that week?
So let's use this example just because they're the two relevant ones that I disagreed with this year. That was K-State at KU after upsetting Oklahoma. And then last week, Texas at Baylor. And I said I feel like there are some definite rules to be broken in there, but he is correct. More often than not, these sandwich games are doing well because that's exactly what it is.
And it's something that's, to me, is not factored into the market. It's a variable that you're trying to guess emotion. But I've made a living at trying to find those emotional spots.
And I think it's great because you're absolutely right that no one is going to get up for some no-name team like Western Carolina. Now Alabama beat the ever-living crap out of them, but that doesn't mean they're going to get up the
And
big
the goal
week.
is to find a piece of information that's factored into the betting line to find value.
Absolutely, and Marco does a great job of that. VR, we appreciate you as well. We're going to step out for a quick break, and when we return, it's our final thoughts for this week's action. I can't wait to hear what these guys have to say. Did you know every Tuesday is $2 Tuesday at WagerTalk.com? We pick the hottest handicapper and offer his best bet for just $2. This is a great way to introduce yourself to the winning handicappers at WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com. All right, and your favorite part of the show that you guys just scroll to the very end so you don't have to listen to me and Marco be mean to one another the whole time. All right, that's right. It's time for the show recap. Let's start with the primetime games. Alabama at Auburn. The consensus is Auburn. I also agree with these guys on this one. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. We're all three divided here. Marco likes the over. VR, I'm head-to-head with VR twice, and I don't like that. Okay, Ohio
I'm going to
State.
sweep, watch.
That's good. Good idea. I like that attitude. I'm going to sweep. Yeah, good idea. Ohio State at Michigan. That's right. Ohio State is a 9-point favorite.
How'd you get a hook and I didn't?
I bought it. 20 cents. They charged me. They charged me, and I bought
Funny
it.
that that's up like that because when we were reading it off to her, I was like, oh, there's 9 and 9.5 available, and VR goes, give me the 9.5.
That's the point of shopping, though.
It's so
there's a
true.
good point.
It's
Okay,
so
there's
true.
nines out there. I like Ohio State. There's 9.5s out
That's
there.
what you
like
have to
Michigan.
do.
Yeah, good.
But that
that's
one
a-
is headed to 10. So if you do like the Buckeyes, the time is to bet it now. All right, let's go to Barking Dogs. All right, Arizona and Middle Tennessee both barking. I hope Oklahoma State is barking as well, but we'll get to that one here in a minute. The Steam game of the week. VR says the Ducks are it.
Quack, quack.
Yeah, I hope they're quacking. Man, I'm gonna get to the window with this one with you, Marco. Your bologna sandwiches. This one's got lots of stinky
Yeah, I think
cheese.
I'm gonna get on it.
Got lots of stinky cheese on it with KU, but that's okay. I think you're right. I think this is a definite look-ahead spot, and
Are you allowed to bet Kansas being a Kansas State alum?
I bet against KU all the time or on them, mainly during basketball season. All right, and last but not least, let's recap our best bets. Marco is going with the Thundering Herd, -7.5 over Florida International. Again, VR and I breaking each other's hearts. He's laying it with Texas over Texas Tech.
That's a scary bet, Texas minus.
You're right.
Oh,
But you
what
made
was
a
I
great
thinking?
point. You made a very great point about saying that Texas Tech looks really easy, and you're right. I had it listed
As automatic.
early on, and I'm like, I think I have to get there with the 10.
It would be ironic. Last week, Texas, in their best role of dog, crapped the bed. Now this week, their worst role is a favorite.
And they roll. Yeah, of course. All right, and if you guys missed it, Oklahoma State is my best bet. Again, why didn't I get the hook? 13.5. What? Who's writing these things? All right, guys. Either way, I hope you enjoyed tonight's college edition of Bet On It as much as we did filming it. Make sure you guys go on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe. That way you guys are the first ones to always know instead of tweeting me when the new episode is out. And also be sure to share with your friends on social media. And what is that you always say? Smash the like button.
Smash that. Smash it.